So a few weeks ago, when we spoke to you in Jeju for the APAC, you were incredibly optimistic that Malaysia will be able to cut down the tariff rates quite a bit. And now, give us a sense of what happened since then.
Well, first of all, thank you, Reuters and the team, and thank you, Cynthia, for having me. I'm still optimistic. I've looked at this announcement as an opportunity for us to continue our negotiations till the 1st of August. I'm in touch with USTR as recent as yesterday, and we all agreed that we should continue our negotiations. So we still have time. There are challenges, of course. There are issues that we still need to resolve, but many of those issues have been resolved, but unfortunately not on the timeline that was set. I think the timeline was yesterday, and where it's supposed to be effective today. But with the announcement by Trump, we have a few more weeks extension to negotiate on the final terms.
For South Korea and Japan, we know that currency is part of the trade talks, and that's been making some headlines. But I know that Ringgit has been doing very well this year, thanks in part to the oil price going up a little bit. Do you know, and has that been part of the trade discussion with Washington?
Well, on the currency, of course, Central Bank is part of our team. They have engaged the Secretary of Treasury. But just for your information, all currencies are strengthening against the US dollars, not just Malaysia, Korea. So I think it's more about currency manipulation, etc., which we do not take part in anyway. I mean, the Central Bank has made it clear. So that issue has been discussed, and I believe from my colleagues at the Central Bank and Ministry of Finance has been addressed.
You know, Malaysia has been one of the very few that's gone, the rates go up a little bit, and we want to understand what was the most difficult or thorny issues there, because you've been the chief negotiator, right? So could you share with us?
Well, there are many issues. First of all, I think we can all agree it's not just about tariffs. If you look at tariff, Malaysia, and just like Korea and Japan, we don't have much tariff that we have imposed against products that is coming from the US. So it is about other issues relating to non-tariff. And one of the major issues is about trade imbalance. So this is an area where Malaysia has a positive surplus. I mean, our trade surplus last year was around 25 billion US. The US administration wants to see this reduced. And also on areas where they feel that there are red tapes on certain products, on agriculture, on halal. So these are issues which we need to address. We're still discussing. Of course, there are red lines as well. We have talked about digital tax. We talked about issues that pertaining to imports of certain products that may be harmful to our industries. So these are things which we are still in negotiation, but most of the issues, outstanding issues, have been resolved. And I believe that the time given till 1st of August will give us more avenue to resolve these issues that have yet to be addressed.
Right, so we also heard this week that Trump is ready to send the second batch of tariff notices, and we are hearing that there's going to be even higher tariffs on countries that retaliate. And I know you've said before that Malaysia is not going to be one of those countries that's going to retaliate, but what's the latest there? Have you heard of this?
Well, I just heard it this morning, in fact. Well, you can read from Trump's posting, right, on Truth Socials. So I've not heard anything else apart from that. All I know is that there are more countries that will get a letter from Trump. But for us, for Malaysia, and for I'm sure many of my colleagues from other countries are all having discussions. Definitely, we have no plans to retaliate for now.
We are hearing that any transshipments going through Vietnam is going to be subject to another 40% of tariff rates. That's a big one. And for this part of the world, that could be a huge blow for many sectors, I'm sure. And I just want to get your view on what kind of impact in which sectors do you expect from that?
Well, I can't talk on behalf of Vietnam, but for Malaysia, we have already imposed very stringent rules on transshipment. As recent as a month ago, we have changed the rules when it comes to certificate of origin from countries that is exporting to US. So for Malaysia, it's a non-issue. There's not much transshipment anyway from China or from other countries to the US. If you look at exports from Malaysia to the US, 60% of our exports is from the E&E sector, mainly semiconductor. And 65% of that, or nearly 70% of that, is coming from US companies themselves. Right? So it's not a big issue for Malaysia. I think our issue will be more to ensure on security of technology, security of the chips that's coming in. So these are issues which are more under the domain of the Department of Commerce, talking about economic security. So we are continuing our negotiation with both USTR as well as the Department of Commerce.
So, Minister, this is sort of an imaginary question. So, if I could take you back to early April and say you could, start everything from scratch, what would you have done differently as a chief negotiator for Malaysia and to some extent the ASEAN?
Honestly, Cynthia, I think I would not do anything differently. As you know, there's only two countries that have concluded, in a way, their terms of agreement. That's United Kingdom and Vietnam, and the rest haven't. It's not easy to negotiate, not just with the US, but in general. And Malaysia, we are party to 18 FTAs, and I'm sure countries like Singapore, Korea, many other countries in Asia have similar experience. The fastest agreement that we have ever done was about 11 months, so it takes time. But in this case, with the US, we have got a very tight timeline, and 90 days is very, very difficult for any country. And we can see only two countries have managed to conclude within that timeline. But having said that, I think this time we are appreciative that the timeline has been extended to 1st of August. It gives us a bit more time to refine some of the issues that need to be resolved, because it involves many ministries within our government and agencies as well. So we need to coordinate that, and it will take time to do so.
You were formerly Malaysia's finance minister, so I'm sure you could answer this question with confidence. So do you feel that your currency has been going a little bit too strong, or do you think that it reflects the economy's fundamental right now with energy prices?
As a finance minister before, I think you know the answer to that. The answer is, I think the currency reflects the fundamentals of the economy.
It does honestly, right now?
Yes, I think so. I believe so. And if you look at our economy, last year grew by 5%, and this first quarter is 4.4%, and it's continued to show strength in terms of investments, trade. We had record exports in the first and second quarter. So I think fundamentally we are strong, but having said that, you have to be mindful of the future. Investors are looking at tariff, looking at issues regarding the global economy. So we just had meetings with various investors that are coming to this region, and Malaysia in particular. Everyone is taking a more cautious approach. That in 2025 will continue to be strong. Even the impact of tariff is expected to be minimal given the timing of the tariff. But we still need to be mindful and prepared. So that's why engagement is key with all other countries, so that we can continue to get market access and ensure that the principles of multilateralism, rule-based system continues.
So if you saw markets today, you probably know that all around the region across Asia right now is seeing some downturn and a little bit of softness in the market right now. What do you think is the biggest risk for the ringgit going forward for the next few weeks?
Well, it's all about uncertainty, right? I think markets wants to factor in as much as possible the certainty, but they can't, given many uncertainties surrounding not just the tariff issues, but there are other issues as well. So for Malaysia, the risk will be what's happening in the US, in China, what's happening also in the region, because Malaysia is very much an open economy. If you look at our trade to GDP, last year it was in excess of 150%. So we are dependent on the global economy.
Many people kind of see Malaysia often gets entangled between the Washington and Beijing. And as you have been experiencing, I'm sure you feel that China has been trying to come across as a more reliable and a more predictable partner. And I just want to hear, do you agree that China has become a more reliable and predictable partner than the US?
Well, for me and for our ministry and definitely for our government, the rules of engagement hasn't changed. We continue to engage the US. We continue to engage the China. We don't say that China or US is treating us better because at the end of the day, US continues to be our largest investor in terms of FDI. US continue to be our largest export market, right? So China is of course second. And China continues to be our largest trading partner, and they are our second largest investor into the country. Both countries, in terms of collaboration in trade and investment, are key to Malaysia. So we continue to be neutral, we continue to be independent as well, and we continue to engage all others the same, China, US, Europe, GCC. So we will continue to engage all countries, and I'll continue to engage my counterparts in both China and US as well.
You said that beautifully. I also am curious to know if you could give us any update about your ministry's probe into a Chinese company using Chinese chips for a data center in Malaysia. How's that going? What's the latest there?
Well, we have working closely with the US and our enforcement agencies. There's no such evidence showing that is the case. But having said that, we are looking at ways to strengthen our laws and our regulations. The problem is about bureaucracy, right? And in business, investors and companies don't like us to have more guidelines and more rules when it comes to trade. But for chips, given the sensitivities, we may have to. And we're looking at the laws, which allows us to. At the moment, we are discussing with all stakeholders, including the industries as well, because it will slow down processes.
Right. Sorry, I feel like I'm cutting you, but my one more question on that related note, is Malaysia working on this, building a data center powered by Huawei chips?
We are building data centers powered by all chips, I think, but main chips is still coming from the US. If you look at the Malaysian data centers, even the local players are using US chips, of course, given the advantage of using the chips.
So the report about Huawei chips being part of it is not true?
I think that one has been retracted. That report is wrong. I think the ministry, yes, that has been retracted. The deputy minister herself has retracted it, and I made a statement. It's not true.
Okay, so we have some time to take a question from the audience. I'll read it out for you. So had the US position on tariffs hurt its status as a reliable long-term economic partner for Asian countries? What's your take?
Well, I think the devil is in the details, right? We are still negotiating. Let's see the outcome of the negotiations. Definitely markets are concerned about the development. People that I talk to still believe that multilateralism is the way forward, not unilateralism. But having said that, engagement is also key. The US is also still a strong, big economy globally. It's 25 to 28% of the global GDP. We can't ignore the US. We need to engage the US. So we still believe that engagement is key.
Are you still optimistic by the end of this month, in August 1st, that the tariff rates will go down a little bit?
I am optimistic, especially in sectors that I feel there is a win-win. Malaysia is, of course, a key player in the semiconductor sector, and the semiconductor sector supports the supply chain for US semiconductor and E ecosystem. So we need to continue the discussion, and I'm optimistic, and especially in sectors also that complement each other.
Recently, we've seen some, e.g. 5G, DNB, where rules were changed frequently. Don't you think this may impact Malaysia's perception of investors-friendly destination?
To be fair, you have to put that in the right context. In terms of investments, last year was our record investments. It went up by 15%, close to 90 billion US of approved investments. In the first quarter, the investment continued to go up, around 3.7 or 3.8%. On the regulation, on the guidelines, on the 5G, on DNB debt, continues to be addressed by our Ministry of Communications, and then our agency, MCMC, is looking into it. As far as I'm concerned, what the ministry has decided is to create more competition in this area, and that competition is supposed to help industries and also, of course, consumers.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you so much for your time.